The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, from Arlington, Virginia, US. I am Tika Rai, the facilitator of the webinar today. I see people from Senegal, Cameroon, Turkey, China, India, Togo, all over the world. So depending on where you are from, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. All right, so today we're going to talk about IPMA Global Achievement Award and why you should apply for your project that you managed, you led, or you participated. And IPMA stands for International Project Management Association, and the Global Achievement Awards, which we're going to talk about in detail in a bit. But before we start talking about the awards, I'm going to go through briefly a little history of International Project Management Association, for short IPMA, or we also call it IPMA for short. Then we will go on to categories of awards, and we will drill down onto each type of award that we're going to talk about. And towards the end, we're going to talk about why we should apply for the award. Okay? All right, so I'm going to flip this slide. There we go. So if you can see the list here is a rather chronology of all the milestones International Project Management Association has achieved over the years. And again, like I said, we're going to go through briefly on this one, and we're going to dive into Achievement Awards, which is the main focus of the webinar today. IPMA started in 1965, but not as IPMA, as you can see. Actually, it was called Internet, based off the two words, international network. Idea was to create network around the world in project management. As we all know today, Internet stands for something different, something big. And through due diligence, we, instead of calling Internet, we call ourselves IPMA. And to this day, we are called IPMA. And the other milestones are following. In 1998, IPMA started individual certifications in project management. We have 4 levels of certifications. For the detail, please go and visit the IPMA website, which is down at the bottom of the slide. There you can find details of the individual certifications. In 2002, IPMA launched the Global Project Excellence Award, which is one of the awards that IPMA offers to all the applicants around the world on a yearly basis. But this has to do with the private sector project management award. In 2007, IPMA added to its portfolio of products, which is a research award. So an individual can apply for this award since 2007. In 2012, IPMA started organizational assessment certification, meaning just like in 1998, IPMA started individual certifications, organizations can get certified as well in terms of project, program, and portfolio. In 2013, IPMA started Global Achievement Award, which is today's focus. And in 2015, IPMA competence standards revision was completed. So when we talk about competencies, we're talking about individual competencies, as well as organizational, and also the Project Excellence Award baseline, meaning, to achieve a project excellence, what kind of model, what kind of baseline, one needs to have. So those kind of things are in those standards. All right, so this is the brief sort of a chronologic, background of IPMA. And now we go on to the next slide, in which we're going to start talking about the awards. Okay, as the slide tells the story, right? So Global Achievement Awards, we have projects and individuals. So let's talk about projects, and this is actually the main focus of the award itself. Towards the end, I will give you a link where you can go and find more information about individuals as well. But in the meantime, we have Q&A session in which you can also ask about, including individual-related questions. I'm talking about the awards here. That time permits, that is, right? So in the project category, we have 5, as you can see on the screen. First one is community service projects. Second, regional development projects. Third, internationally funded humanitarian aid projects. Fourth, sustainable development projects. And the last one in project category is diversity in project management. So next slides will tell a little bit more about these categories of projects and also provide you some images of the past winners or recent winners in the category. Okay, for the individuals, we have 2 categories: Young Project Manager of the Year, which is 35 years old, or Younger Project Manager, who would have done an excellent job in project management in whatever project he or she has completed. Whereas the Project Manager of the Year is a person or a project manager who is older than 35 years of age. So that's a demarcation of young and not young project manager. All right, so I'm going to move to the next slide. The first one, the community service projects, right? So when you hear a service, it may not sound necessarily like, you develop a product by partnering with the communities around the world. But what we mean here is any project that has to do with community development. It could be service, it could be product development for sustainability, for example. They all qualify as community service projects. And I'm pretty sure, some of you or most of you here, have had experience in working with the nonprofit space, which are donor funded. When I say donor funded, that means it could be international NGOs, European Commission, for example, USAID, for example, those kind of funders or funding agencies, right, who would work with the local partner for community development, which is relatively long-term. What I mean to say relatively long-term here is compared to relief efforts, when there's natural disasters, for example, there's also a project to provide services, for the survivors of hurricane, for example, or avalanche, for example. Those are short-term projects, right? Because the nature of the project is, it requires lots of support and services. It spikes up, but it's not a long-term project, So community service projects are long-term, relatively speaking, compared to the relief efforts. And most of the times, when donor-funded NGOs work in the region or in the community within a region or a country, they work through partners, right? So that's what we're talking about. So in a nutshell, when we think of community service projects, we're talking about INGOs, multilateral funded projects to develop certain aspects of community, right? It could be agriculture, it could be health, it could be educational, or it could be heavily integrated too, because these days, the strategies the NGOs use are heavily integrated, from health to education, health to agriculture / food, etc. And as the label rather says, the one on the left-hand side is the 2017 bronze winner, Rural Village Water Resources. It was a phase 2 of the project. It was implemented in Nepal. What it did was created, or rather developed, a sustainable model how water can be pumped out of the river down below, hundreds of feet below, and get the water on the hilly area of the community, distributed among the households, and certain fees are structured so that it's sustained too. One on the right is a gold winner, again, from Nepal. It's a maternal and child health promotion project. It's interesting to see that how a local nonprofit would partner with the community in the health space, but actually letting the community manage the health facility, which is unprecedented in a country like Nepal. So they have done a good job, and that's how they won the gold award last year. Okay, so this is in a nutshell, right, what a community service project is. So we would look forward to getting some questions later towards the end of the webinar as well, and as well as getting the applications by end of the June, which we'll talk about in a minute. Also, the timeline to submit the applications for the awards. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next category, which is regional development projects. So as the term says, if there's a project which would develop a infrastructure of a community or of a region, for example. The photograph here is actually from one of the highway that was built by JICA, a Japanese government in Nepal again, which is about 90 miles, about $2.5 billion worth of funding. So because of this road, all the communities around this highway or the road, they have better access to transportations, right? So the small business were able to bring the price down because of the access to the wholesalers, for example. And also, it provided access to students, who would commute from one to the other. There are many benefits, of course. So we're talking about these types of projects, The first one was a community development. So in contrast, this would develop the whole region, through building bridges, for example, building schools, for example, or building highways such as this, for example. And as I've said, this is regional, as well as, in some cases, it could be only a few communities, right? So that would also qualify as a regional development projects. An example are, the World Bank, regional banks. In Asia, we have the Asian Development Bank. In Latin America, we have other regional banks as well. So those type of institutions who would fund, developing such infrastructure would qualify for this category of the project. Okay. So now we're going to go to the next one. Internationally funded humanitarian aid projects. This is the shorter version that I mentioned earlier, when we compare with the community development projects. So in 2016, we all know, right? Between 2013 and 16, the Ebola epidemic in West Africa. And so in such harsh and challenging environment, how an organization can go and respond to the epidemic so rapidly, so quickly, with high risks of getting infected, right? So in those environments, this particular organization who won the gold in 2016 did a very good job making sure, all the crew, all the team members are protected from getting infected. At the same time, just the time constraint, right? Because it was an epidemic, the later you do things, the more people would potentially perish. And speaking of people perishing, we more than 11,000 people perished during the Ebola epidemic. So these types of projects are, highly, highly risky ones. There are lots of constraints, and it's unique compared to other types of projects. So this is the category in which you apply for the award. Okay. And there are a couple of pictures, from that particular project.
Tika, just a quick comment. The essence of the internationally funded humanitarian aid projects is that the funding is received from a country outside of the country in which the benefit is delivered, in which the project is delivered. So that's one of the criteria for that category.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's a great call. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear now. Part of the category is it's funded by like the category title says, right? Internationally funded from outside, and that's one of the categories as well. Great. All right. So now we're gonna move to the next one. Well, the next category that is, right? So there are two categories, it's in a single slide. So these are new ones, really, that IPMA felt and thought, through due diligence that, we need to have categories, for these two types as well, because in community development projects or regional development projects, are the projects sustainable? Meaning, in the long term, whatever project, expectation was set, it was delivered, that's great. But has it really sustained over the years? Meaning, economic sustainability, technological sustainability, social or societal sustainability, if it was there or not. Because sometimes what happens is, we all celebrate that project was completed, champagne, cut the ribbons, and so on. But the day, after that is a nosedive, right? Because there wasn't any sustainability component embedded throughout the project, thinking about mid or long-term sustainability. So this is needed, and IPMA really did a good job of, again, thinking it through, coming up with the framework, and actually creating an award category. And as the category here says, post-project sustainable strategies or activities, meaning, again, right, when the project is completed, after that, what strategies and activities to implement or get to or execute those strategies are already planned out. Second one, I already mentioned, economic, social, and technological sustainability, if it's there or not. I'm not saying, all three sustainability should be there, right? It could be any of the three or a combination. And this does reflect, the UN sustainable goal, the current one. We relate to that as well. So it's not really included in the slide, but when you go to the website, you can see more about that too. The third item says revenue model embedded. It kind of does touch, the economic sustainability, but to sustain any activity, or any projects, you got to have some type of revenue model to really sustain or push the project for its continuation, right? So these are the things we will look into, how well a project, after it is completed, those sustainable activities or sustainability rather activities and strategies, are really planned out and ownership has been assigned or understood, So please, this is the first time around that we are awarding this category, and do apply if the projects you have done are so awesome, they're heading towards sustainability, after the project's completed, apply for those. The next one is diversity in project management. So when we talk about diversity, it means lots of things for lots of people, depending on how you look at it. But the three criteria that we feel is, are following, as you can see on the slide. The first one is ethnic and racial diversity, second, gender, and third, cultural. You could ask, like, hey, ethnic and racial diversity and culture are almost same or can be used interchangeably, right? But when we talk about cultural diversity, it's about the organization's culture, what's the tolerance level, right? How open you are about, for example, celebrating Chinese New Year or Eid, for example, right? So that differentiates, from an individual's background with the organization's culture or the just tolerance level, or how well we uphold different ethnic and racial diversity within the organization setting. The gender is pretty straight, right? Irrespective of what orientation you may have, right? So we would like to look into those projects, which would have diversity as such, all these three categories right here. Again, this is also the new category, like the sustainable development projects. I'm pretty sure, the participants here, have a very very tolerant organizations to implement different projects, and we do look forward to getting some applications for this category as well. All right. So hey, Mark, any comments from your side so far? I'm calling out to my colleague here, one of the co-organizer here. Yeah.
No, Tika, I think you've done a great job of describing the projects and the different types of projects. These new categories we have introduced because we feel that we want to make sure that the awards keep in touch with current day views and current day or contemporary ideas. And so the concept of having a category in which our focus is not on the fact that a part of your project is to deliver a sustainable outcome. These are projects in which the entire focus of the project is a sustainable outcome. So it's a really important factor, particularly an economic factor for developing countries and so forth. And the diversity in project management is obviously in the news all over the globe. And we do want to recognize in that category that it can either be a project that demonstrates a high level of diversity or a company. So the diversity in project management can be actually generated at the company level. And so it's the company policies and processes and practices that have enabled projects to demonstrate diversity. So two really good new categories. We're looking forward to getting some really good submissions in both categories.
Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. I mean, as you would all agree, right? These two categories are something, it makes a lot of sense. It's something, we may all have wondered, during our time with project management and the people we work with. So we're very, very happy that we have these two categories as well, in the portfolio of the awards. All right, and again, always, for more information, there's a website. It's pretty straightforward, IPMA.world, right? And you'll see all information there, including the awards, the categories, and the application process, and guides, things like that. All the resources are there. Speaking of the application process, next slides, we're going to cover about those items as well. Okay, so we're going to move to the next slide. Why should you apply? Right. Now, I'm going to give you a test. So all participants need to take 5 minutes and take a test, and you'll all be graded. No, I'm just kidding. So why should you apply? First, maybe if you just think it through, like first instinct would be, maybe I'm a good project manager. Maybe the project I led was so awesome. Maybe, I should get recognized because, I always want to improve my project management skills as part of the professional development. Whatever the reasons, winning is good, don't you think? All right, so we're going to go one by one, right? So the first off is acknowledgement of excellence within organization as well as donors and sponsors. So if the project is well implemented, so when we say well, there are lots of things, right? Some of you may have already been certified as project manager from different organizations. I don't know, but well would imply all those constraints that you have to manage during the project life cycle, meeting the expectations of the sponsors, donors, and also the target communities or beneficiaries, right? Have you achieved all those? And went beyond and above, actually, coming up with innovative solutions, for a unique problem on hand. So if you felt that you did that, and you should be acknowledged of that, right? So that's why one of the reasons why you should apply. The second one, opportunity to have the project reviewed by highly experienced international project managers. So when you do apply for the award of any categories that we talked about a few seconds ago, there are judges who would review the applications, get back to you with questions if they are, need to be answered, and all the inputs during the review that you get eventually are something of a value for you, because all these judges or who would really review your projects are highly experienced, many years of experience in project management, private, nonprofit, you name it. And the feedback and input at the least you get is something, it's a takeaway for you to use as a lessons, right, going forward. The third one, benchmarking of your organization's PM competencies against your peers and competitors. If you would win, or when you would win rather, what does that say to your organization? I think that speaks a volume, right? So with the certification, which you get with the award, I think that would really start a conversation among your peers within your organizations or even competitors, right? That you have won an award because you have done an excellent job of implementing a project, right? And with that, all future projects or ongoing projects could be brought into a conversation saying, hey, if we do a project well, then it's a win-win. And out of that, we can also get an award saying, all our competencies within our organization of an individual who are involved in the project is there to demonstrate that competencies, right? So the fourth one is global publicity of PM excellence by the team members, project manager, and their funding organization. So when the finalists are selected out of all the applications, they are invited to an award gala, which we'll talk towards the end of the webinar. So when you are, or when, the announcer would disclose, who are the winners, right? There are at least, up to 1,000 people, even some of the award gala and streaming online, right? This disclose of your achieving award, in that global arena is a big publicity about your organization or the project you implemented or you successfully completed. So that's why you should apply. Now I'm going to go to the next slide. I have many more reasons. Well, 4 more. Then we will kind of wrap it up. Why you should apply. So the next one is winning is an amazing feeling, don't you think? In any competition, right? It could be sports, individual, team. During your colleges, getting an A, for example, winning is an amazing feeling. It feeds to the self-confidence and self-respect. Meaning, if you would win, say, Young Project Manager of the Year, or you were part of that project which won the community development project, what does it do to you besides amazing feeling? It really adds to your self-confidence and self-respect. You know your thing. Then after that, it marks your level or competencies. Then you try to do better going forward, right? And it's an amazing feeling indeed. The next one, be part of the conversation with the visibility the awards bring you. So if your team or the project you are involved in wins it, that can start lots of conversation again, right? Going back to your peer and competitors, or any dinner or lunch that you go to, and it's an awesome feeling. Awards create a nexus of excellence. Become a member. So every year, all the winners of different categories of awards, we have remain in touch. We still communicate. We still talk, right? So you become a member of that nexus of excellence, and it's an amazing feeling to have that level of visibility, network, and peers who have also done a great job and won the awards. And finally, momentum and motivation to continually demonstrate PM excellence. So winning an award, which you would all agree, and already I mentioned too, is something that slaps or that cements, your competencies in project management excellence. But it adds such a fuel to your motivation to go forward, like that you want to do again or do better all the time, because through this experience, you learn quite a bit too, right? Becoming a member of Nexus of Excellence, for example, attending, these conversations or these galas, these meetings, you kind of have your own track going on after that, in which you always try to continue to improve the project management excellence. So these are the categories that we feel that, should justify well that you should apply for the award, because it's an amazing feeling, it's a motivational, experience, and you become a member of this group, who are very good at project management and things like that. Okay. And I really hope that I did motivate you in your mind, going forward, you're going to apply for the award. Not necessarily this year, but we do hope, you all apply. But again, the next process you might do in future, Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to the next slide, which we're going to talk about how to apply the process, which was already touched earlier, saying, hey, we're going to talk about it later towards the end of the webinar. So as you can see, this is a sort of a swim lane, left to right. The first block is just get familiar with the submission guidelines. Go to the website. As I mentioned, all the resources and the guidelines are there, and just go through it and understand what criteria they need to focus, or what to think about when you write an application, for example, and what not to put in, right? It will give you a clear idea as to what you should be writing in the application, right? The second one is up here, which is to get necessary confirmations from client or sponsors. When you go through the guideline, you will see that, when you apply for the award, rather, the sponsor or the client should sign off for that, meaning, agreeing or acknowledging that you are applying for the award. Okay. The third one, work on the main submission based on the application form. So we have an application form, which you can also get it from the website, and you have to fill them out. The project scope, the challenges you faced, and how did you address those challenges, risks, and how did you mitigate them, and other constraints, right? Because every project is a unique one, so you need to be able to capture those narratives, and be able to also tell the story how you address them, all the challenges, the blockers you may have experienced, right? The fourth one is send the submission for review to your peers. So this is sort of a quality assurance type of thing, right? So before you submit to IPMA, why don't you have some of your peers have a take on it? Meaning, questions you might want to ask is like, have we captured the real essence, total essence of the story in the project you were able to do? You can check that. Have we missed any important task or risks or challenge that you faced? Sometimes, we forget. Sometimes we overlook things, right? So those kind of things, because the more story you have, more relevant story you have in the application, the better, right? So when I say more, quality also comes into that, right? So all these things that you were able to implement, execute, should be in the application. And also the quality of the writing is something, you can also have your peers comment on the application. And the fifth one, then of course you review it, write the final version, and then submit final version, and with photos and logos. Like we all agree, right? A picture speaks 1,000 words, right? So please do add your photos, images, and it also to the assessors. Sorry, it is an indication of a proof or evidence that it actually happened. We'd be able to, when I say we, all the judges or reviewers would be able to interpret more visually as well with the help of pictures, right? So please do include those. And finally, the finalists are notified, and during the award gala, the winners are announced. So there may be a confusion here, when we talk about finalists and when we're talking about the winners. So what IPMA does is it announces the finalists, but we don't know who is the gold winner or silver winner or the bronze winner or any unique kind one-off type of winner sometimes, right? If a project is done so well, but it does not really qualify for any other categories, that's something IPMA will look into it as well. So finalists are notified because they have to make arrangement to come to the award gala, right? If we don't let them know that, how they can plan, right? In the gala itself, the winners will be announced: gold, silver, bronze, or any special announcement relating to the applicants, right? So that's how it works. Okay. So again, we have Q&A session towards the end, and now if you have more questions, we can definitely go through this sort of streamline and it's not a must, or rather it's a task for you to consider. Okay, so to go back and review, get familiar with the submission guidelines, understand the requirements, the scope that you need to add into the application. Second, get necessary confirmations from sponsors, donors, because that's something we would like to see that too, right? So how much was the budget, for example, right? You need to disclose that, and you might want to inform and have a green light from the sponsor or client, or in some cases, donors. The third one, work on the main submission based on the application form. So that's putting in your story, right? And how well you can articulate, and then submission to your peers for review, all the feedbacks, inputs, make sure, you haven't missed out anything, and the quality of the report is good, or the quality of an application is good, right? Then based on those feedback, you write the final version. Then you submit to IPMA with photos and logos. Then you await the response from IPMA, if you were selected as the finalist or not, right? But even in any case, IPMA will notify the applicant, what's the outcome in terms of were you, part of the finalist or not. Okay. Next slide. A little bit detail with the date on this one. This is an application process again. So if you look at this also streamlined, right? But we have, first, second, and third row. So I'm going to go with the first row, left to right, come to the second streamline, left to right, and go to the final streamline one. So the first one, in some cases, well, in most cases rather, because now IPMA has more than 75 member association, which is to say, 75 or more countries as part of the IPMA umbrella members, right? We call them member association, for short MA. In some MAs, before applicant applies for the award to IPMA, they go through their local member association or local award, if there is. In some cases, member associations do have award program. They go through locally first, and they apply to IPMA. In some cases, they don't have award programs. In that case, they directly advise the applicant to apply to IPMA. In some cases, if we don't have member associations, then applicant directly can apply to IPMA. Okay, I just gave you a broader level of information in how actually the award can flow from local award or local organization to IPMA. Okay, so the first one, 23rd June, which is this month, is around the corner. We have a judges kickoff meeting. And on the 30th, receive individual applications. So what 30th June means is that's the last deadline, or the deadline for you all to apply for the award. Okay, and after that we have, make sure my mouse works here. Anyway, so my mouse not working, but that's okay. And after that we have the 29th, submit on the application form. So okay, so there's a little note up there on the second item, which is 29th June 2018. Application can be submitted directly by an individual project or by the winner of the IPMA National Award, which I said a few seconds ago. And the third one is the July 27th, which is participate in judges kickoff meeting. So this is rather internal. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So this is something, internally, if my judges would kick off a meeting.
Yeah, so the kickoff meeting is where all the judges, because the judges, like the applicants, are likely to be from across the globe or are from across the globe. So we have a kickoff meeting around late July, and then in early August, all of the submissions are given to the judges. A minimum of 3 judges will look at every submission to ensure that there is the balance taken. For those applicants who are considered to be potential finalists, there will be an interview, and that is normally conducted in the week 10 to 17 August. And whether or not whether it's an applicant that's come through a direct application or one that has come through their national process, the dates are the same. And then the winners are decided early in September and will be advised so that they can then attend the gala award dinner. So in terms of the award dinner, as has already been mentioned, it's to be held in Helsinki this year. The winners will be announced at the gala award dinner, and then on the following day, the judges will sit with the applicants, with the winners, and provide them with feedback on their submission, because we want this process to be a learning process as much as it is an award process. So it's really important from the judge's perspective that all of the winners are given feedback so that if they wish to submit again, which obviously is possible in the following years, their submission will be a much better submission, and so that their project management will improve as a direct result of their submission of an application to the IPMA Global Awards. So our focus is entirely on trying to improve the excellence of project management across the globe. Thanks, Tika.
Thank you, Mark. You articulated very well. And by the way, my colleague here, Mark Patch, has been heading the review process for this award. So thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. So a couple of important dates, right? So June 30th is the timeline by which you should apply. In some cases, when you have some timing issues, you can always reach out to us as well, requesting, if it's exception, that there was a valid reason why you couldn't do on time, right? Submit the application by the timeline or the deadline. We would definitely consider that, with the rationale, justifiable one, right? So that's one. And the second one is the July 10th to 15th interviews with national regional applicants. If we need to, when we talk about interviews, right, we're talking about if there are more information that we would like to seek or get from you, or more, other materials like videos or photos, things like that. Because what we really want to see is, your application, if it does not tell the full story, if there are any gaps, we would really like to touch base with the applicants and get those information so we can draw a fuller picture, and that we really want to help in that regard. So that's why the interview takes place. And, if your application is, you have done a great job and everything is included, and that interview may not happen because there's no, need for that, right? So that's one. The final one and more important one is, if you are part of the finalists, the celebration, which we also call an award gala, is during 29th and 31st in Helsinki, Finland. So, and you might have questions like, hey, if we win, is this sponsored or not? For achievement awards, all the categories that we went through, IPMA does not sponsor your travel, hotel, things like that. So it needs to be on your own from your organization. And you might wonder now, I need to, have my organization funded. In NGOs cases, often or more than often, we may not have those resources. But this is something definitely, you can go back and have conversation going, saying, hey, we really need to apply because we have done a great job, managing and implementing this project. And the winning is important to us because all the things we talked about in terms of benefits, right? Why you should apply. And that's something, we really look forward to NGOs or INGOs have, resources for yearly application and just to represent itself in award gala every year, So I hope that was something in your mind as a question. But again, we'll talk in our Q&A session also. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide, which is the final one. So this is a photo insert from last year's award gala, which was held in Astana, Kazakhstan. And we would like to see you in Helsinki this year. We already said the timeline. October 9, 2029 is the night when when we're going to celebrate the awards. Okay, so with that, I had told you, individual categories, we're going to briefly touch it. More information is available in the website. The link is there. I already, mentioned that 35 years of age or younger is young project manager for IPMA, and any person or any manager older than that is just a project manager, or the old project manager, or the senior project manager, whatever you may call it. That's the categories. And for detail, please go to the website and reach out to us, if you have any questions. And for who to contact relating to award, we have Eva, who is also present here in this webinar. Hi, Eva. Her email address is there, and please reach out to her. All the photos owned by IPMA with the intention to promote, or advertise, the winners from previous years. And this leads to our final session, which is Q&A.
Just a quick point, you can use the same project to apply for a project award and a project management individual award. So if you have done an excellent job as the project manager, and the project is also a very good project, and obviously the two of those normally go together, then you can use the same project for both. But you must, of course, submit two different applications, one for the project type award and one for the individual award.
Thank you, Mark. That's a very good call out too. I did not say that at all, so that's a good clarity for the participants here. So Eva, any questions from the participants? So no questions so far. So I have a couple of questions to participants. So after going through all the content, on the slides, do any of you feel like you're part of that project that you're already considering applying for? Could you send yes or no to us through chat here? That's one. And the next one is ask questions, please, because we have still about 8 minutes time, right? So if there's no clarity on the presentation or something, popped up in your mind that, we weren't so clear about, please do ask questions. All right, so there's no questions so far. So I think the conversation went pretty well in terms of clarity, right? What we're trying to present here. So takeaway was to really help you understand why you should apply for IPMA Achievement Awards. And just like any webinars we do, after we're done with this, we will share our slides and contact information, in the email as well. Okay, so Mark, any last few lines before we call it a quit?
No, Tika, I'm happy. So if everybody else is happy, can I encourage you please to go to the website and download the guidelines, have a look at what's required. If you've got any questions that come as a result of that, please don't hesitate to use the awards at IPMA.world email address to ask those questions, and we'll get back to you just as quickly as we can with a response.
All right, with that note, then let's conclude our webinar. So thank you, everyone. I know for some of you, it could be late at night, so I really appreciate, we really appreciate your time being here, and look forward to hearing from you. I want to think it as just a start of the conversation, right? So through our, going forward, all the experience, we want to be there to help you, support you, in terms of project management, certifications, and award, so all the product that IPMA has, we're here to help you directly or indirectly. So like Mark said, don't hesitate to contact us. And with that note, I'd like to say thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Tika.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Mark.